Welcome to another episode of the 100% podcast with me, your host, Harry Purdy. Today, I'm joined by a new guest. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Mr. George Charlton, the owner of GC Training and Consultancy Services. He is an award-winning trainer, always a pleasure to have them on, a public speaker specializing in drugs, alcohol, and mental health recovery. Mr. GC, welcome to the show, my guy.
Yes. Good morning, Harry Purdy, my guy as well. It's an absolute pleasure and an honor to be joining you on your podcast, man. You're a bit of a guy yourself. Never mind fucking me being a legend. Like you're right up there as well, kid.
I really appreciate that, mate. And I know there's some excitement on both parties. I knew today that this would be a fantastic episode for me to line up on the day after coming back from a two-day trip away to Lisbon, because I knew that there'd be some like energy in the room, and it's gonna definitely get me started on a Monday morning. So welcome to the 100% podcast, my friend.
Thanks very much, man. Do you know what it is? Remember that song, Tell Me Why I Don't Like Mondays? Whoever wrote that, one shot, right?
Yeah,
Because I
right.
love a Monday, and a Tuesday, and a Wednesday, and a Saturday, and a Sunday, because every day, like, we get to wake up. It's a fucking blessing, man. Because many
Miracle.
people don't get to wake up today, do you know what I mean? So we should be kind of grateful and positive and filled with energy every day.
For sure, I completely agree. And there's like an unbelievable stat, I believe, that in terms of the odds of you, in terms of your predecessors, you being that one specific bit of DNA that comes all the way through those lines of your family tree to be sat here now, should be a time to be thankful and make the most out of every minute. I know it's not, I know sometimes like you get the whole like lack of energy, but you have it within your power to recreate it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me as well, it's been like, I think that's been one of the great things for me has been learning about how to create that energy and that mindset. Do you know what I mean? So like, I've always been kind of like quite an upbeat, well, not always, like, because I had a bit of a shit time earlier on. I'm sure we'll talk about that. However, like over the last decade and stuff, like kind of waking up and kind of programming my mind to be kind of grateful and appreciate some of the smaller things, like being part of the program that we're both on with Morty and stuff like that. You can get that right every morning by just kind of setting your day up. Well, I always remember, one of the things that I did is his 28-day program, and
Yeah, yeah.
first time he was ever on a call, he was talking about people's morning rituals generally, right? People's morning rituals. I'm sure he said something like the wake up, the drink coffee, the have a shit, and the look on Facebook. And then he says that's no way to start your day, right? And like that was how I was starting my days every day, like opening my eyes, my mind was racing, and like my natural state, Harry's to go like I wake up and can be really anxious about fucking everything because my mind's so flighty and quick, and kind of I was doing all of that scrolling and looking at other people and judging myself against them. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't doing anything really positive. And now for me, kind of really simply in the morning, getting up, doing some meditation, doing that journaling, do you know what I mean? And kind of and writing a gratitude list, a little bit of exercise, takes us half an hour to do all of that. And I'm fucking mint. I'm
Yeah,
mint
yeah.
for the day. Do you know what I mean?
Ready to rock and roll then. Yeah. And I know energy, this is one of the reasons why I've invited you onto the show today. Over the last like 3 to 4 months, I've noticed the consistency of how you, not just how you approach yourself, George, but how you approach others, the way that you bring yourself to the room, the way that you try and put across some encouragement, motivation, just some high energy feeling. I saw your, so just to tell the listeners, we've got an online group essentially for all of Morty's clients that we post our wins in. We just ask questions and share things in terms of the group. And I log in, I'll have a look the other day, and there's this video of George in the morning on his way to work, some kind of like trancey house music, and he
Yeah,
does this MCing for a good 1 minute solid. And I was like, fuck me, this guy. It was
come
class
on,
as well,
man.
by the way. It was so good. It was so good. So man, master of many talents.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Do you know what it is, Harry? A lovely little quote is like the only way you keep what you have is by giving it away. Do you know what I mean? And
Ooh.
I think for me, it's like that's kind of what I choose to do, like in my world, in my work, is kind of like project outward kind of like love and possibilities and kind of just happiness, man. Do you know what I mean? I think I've been to some dark places in my life and I'm not there now. Do you know what I mean? and if things that I have in my life now is attainable for me, then it's attainable for everybody else because I'm not that special. Do you know what I mean? However, what I do know is that like having a and fuck it, man, whether it sounds like cheesy or not, like we all talk about positive mindset and all of that stuff. It's not like that I'm exempt from having shit in my life because I've got a lot of shit going on in my life right now and have done over the past like year and a half and so around some family issues and stuff. But like you can kind of look at like that whole thing about like why does this happen for me or why is this happening, like why is it happening to me or why is it happening for me? And I kind of think that like everything happens for me and there's positives in every negative. So I'm just like I'm happy, I'm upbeat. Aye man, let's fucking just life's good, man.
Yeah, I think the fight, like, but because we could just talk about this shit for between you and me, I reckon for like you say, we could be here till 11 o'clock at
Yeah.
night. But what's really important is with all of those sayings that Paul says, right? Without a negative, you can't have a positive. And that's the same. You just gotta change that word up and just put mindset. You can't even know what a positive mindset is without knowing what the negative side of your brain
Negative.
can do. And it's just important, I
Yeah.
think, to do all you can to support being in that frame of mind. And sometimes you don't want to be deluded because shit happens and you can't just go,
Yeah.
oh, like my dog's died, fucking woohoo. You know what I'm saying? That's
No.
not what we're trying to say, but what we're saying is you can support your energy to bring the thunder or bring the power or bring the positivity to other people.
Yeah, man. But equally, Harry, I think like it and it is about being like, you just said like the example you give, like my dog side and stuff. Like 3 years ago, my dad died, right? And like he'd been my best mate. Like he was a fucking legend, man. He was a really amazing, beautiful man, right? And when he died, I had loads of sorrow, but not for any great length of time because I was quick to get into the positive, right? And the positive for me was like he'd been around for like him and my mum had been married for 53 years. He was an absolutely fucking amazing dad. He was like fucking, he was a professional footballer when he was younger. He played for
Oh wow.
Cardiff and Carlisle and like he ran and represented the RAF for England when he was running. He was just a fucking really amazing man, right? So like for me, it is about kind of going, I was really sad that he wasn't around, but then I had to look back at like I'm 50-year old. I had to look back at like the 47 years of like amazing times that we had together. So then it becomes a choice, doesn't it? It becomes a choice of like whether I'm going to kind of live in the negativity of him not being around, or I'm really going to celebrate all the beautiful things that he brought, and also taking into account that thing that you said around DNA. Like I am a product of him, so like so physically he's not around, but he exists within me, and then I get the fucking like the honor to be able to like to to be with my children how he was with me. Do you know what I mean? So like so that thing about kind of like the law of polarity, there can't be any good without bad or light without dark and all of that stuff. Like that's the same thing with me dad. I lost me fucking hero. It was absolutely heartbreaking and gut wrenching. However, am I going to stay in the negative or am I going to look at all the beautiful things that came from that? Do you know what I mean? So I think it's kind of like it's not about saying that people shouldn't be allowed to be in sorrow and stuff. Of course they should. But you know what, man? Like with some really simple tasks like that we do, like you've got to fucking write down like 10 positive things which come out of every experience for you. And sometimes that might seem really counterintuitive, mightn't it? In terms of like when I think about me, like childhood sexual abuse and like physical abuse and fucking drug addiction and being locked up in prisons and locked psychiatric units, people think, where's the fucking positive in all of that? Right here, right now. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm only here because I'm a product of all of those experiences, which at the time were extremely negative, but I turned them around to use them in such a way that this is how I make my living. Do you know what I mean? So it's not that we're being down on people who are experiencing pain and trauma. There is a lot of people going through so much fucking stuff, which is really, really traumatic. Do you know what I mean? But there's definitely ways and means to be able to kind of look at things differently and have a lot of people to wrap around you, man, and just give you some love, I guess.
Yeah, mate, amazing. I love it. And then, of course, we're here to talk about your consultancy services, your coaching, the fact that you promote naloxone. Is that how you pronounce
Yeah,
it?
that's the
Right?
one.
Yeah.
I,
So that
I
can save a life, which is fully in the background there for you. But with all of these stories on the 100% podcast to where people get when I speak to them and they're offering 100% to people, they're offering 100% to their own life. There's always a starting point to be the creator. Like you say, you wouldn't be here now doing what you're doing without the story that you've got behind you. And I know you touched on it briefly there, but I think it's really important for the listeners and I to understand how George Charlton of, let's just say, 40 years ago is changed
Yeah,
to the
man.
man that he is now.
Yeah, yeah, cool, man. It's a it's a big old it's a big old story, man. Like, I often think about like I grew up in a really amazing family. There was lots of love in my family, Harry. There was me, my mum, my dad, and my brother, Michael. And there was a lot of love. I felt really safe at home and stuff. But in the but when I were a lad, when I were a lad, back going back to kind of junior school and secondary schools and so, they used to have like what they called corporal punishment, which basically meant they beat the shit out of you as a kid. So like as far back like when I can remember, like when I was young, I've got this picture that's got like me sitting on a second-hand grifter, which is a bike which I got for Christmas. Little boy in terry towel and pajamas and more hair than I've got now, and I remember how that kid felt, and he felt frightened and didn't feel good enough. And he felt like that, whilst he had the love of his parents, when he left that house and he went to school, junior school, at the age of 8 or 9, he was being hit with bamboo canes on his legs and like rulers on his hands and stuff. Like fucking hell, man, what was that about back then, man? That's abuse. Do you know what I mean? But that's the way we used to discipline kids, man. And it wasn't for anything bad. Like, you know what I mean? I wasn't really a bad kid, but I was still being beaten with these things, you know. So like, so school for me was a place of like heightened anxiety all of the time. Like, I wasn't very I wouldn't say that I was thick, but like I was worried about failing that much that I didn't really try. Do you know what I mean? And like, and I started from a very early age to self-harm a lot. I used to, and I guess for your listeners as well, just being kind of aware that this stuff that we're talking about is kind of quite deep and quite graphic as well. So people just to be mindful of like some trauma warning as we talk, maybe so the next 10 minutes. Do you know what I
Yeah, of
mean?
course. Yeah,
I
yeah.
think people need to be taking care of themselves, Harry, you know. So like, so I would start to scratch myself when I was little, scratch until I bled, basically. Because if you're bleeding, your mum doesn't send you to school, and if you don't go to school, then you're not getting beaten. Do you know what I mean? Right? So like the solution to my problem was not to go to that school, even if it meant that I had to hurt myself not to go there. And I think like I was a mess, man. Me my mum took me obviously to the doctors. Doctors weren't tuned into young people's mental health. Doctor said no wrong with him. He's got to go back to school, and back to school I went, and back to being hit I went, and it was really tough, you know.
What was I've got just to like the teacher that did that, was it one specific one or was it,
No,
it
no,
was just,
the teachers, that's what they did. That it was bizarre, man. It was like it was mad. Um, so I had so I ended up going to see I ended up going to see somebody for some help and support, another adult, and I got a bit more than help and support when I was there at 8 or 9 year old. Like uh, I wasn't sexually abused. I was raped by that man. Do you know what I mean? Like for a good couple of years. And he used to say to me that if I ever told anyone what he was doing to me, that nobody would believe me, they would believe him. And I believed him. I believed that if I told anyone that like so like so now I'm like I'm 8 or 9 year old. I'm in a school that beats you with fucking rulers and bamboo canes. I'm being abused sexually by a man who should know fucking better. Um, and being stripped, man. Like being fucking stripped. Do you know what I mean? Like just frightened and hurt and confused. Like secondary school was like again, it was they used to beat you with leather straps. They used to have like fucking leather straps and they'd take your fucking hands off, man. I'm telling you, like 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old kids, right? And you've got teachers who are literally with all of the might, like taking your fucking hands off. And they used to be quite creative as well, you know, Harry. They didn't just like, they used to have brown leather straps that were kind of quite thick. Some of them had like the strap wasn't just one big bit brown bit, it was like cut. So you had like
Oh,
three
fucking hell.
bits.
They'd almost
And
created it
they'd,
into a whip then. Yeah.
do you know what I mean? And when they used to do that, man, right? Like they really hurt me hands when they hit me, right? But they hurt me fucking mind more. Do you know what I mean? And I just couldn't I couldn't I couldn't wait to just get away from school. I always dreamed that like just being an adult, that everything would be okay. I was in a hurry to be an adult because fucking childhood felt really, 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 really tough. And I think that like so I ended up like I left school with no qualifications whatsoever. Well, I passed it. What did I pass? I got an unclassified, I think, in fucking cookery. I think the only reason I went and did cookery classes was there's loads of lasses who used to go there. So I thought like I'd just try and look there. But I was never very good with the girls. Yeah, I was never very. Do you know what it is, Harry? It was a tough time, man. It's not like a poor me story. It felt like a bit of a tough time, you know, where I didn't know where my place in the world was. You know, the different kinds of groups that you have in schools. You know, you have kind of like the trendies and the dressers. Like I didn't kind of fit into that group, and you had the kind of the academics and the smart people, and I kind of didn't fit into that group. Then you had kind of the undesirables, if you like, and even they were saying, "Fuck you, you're not coming in fucking our group." And I was kind of like, I was creating a social group of my own, and I was the only fucking member. Do you know what I mean? So I kind of laugh about it, but it was a tough time, man. It was a tough time, just filled like not a week or a month or a year, but like a lot of years where I was just in a heightened state of anxiety and trauma. Do you know what I mean? And I guess the only thing that I ever wanted to be when I was about 14, I joined the the army cadets, and I fucking loved it. It was like putting on that uniform. It was almost like a mask. Do you know what I mean? It was like I became somebody else. I was really good at making me boots shiny, and I really took pride in my uniform, and I got like a little Lance Corporal stripe. Do you know what I mean? I was like, fucking, oh, I'm good at something. I'd found something that I was really that I was really good at. So my dreams and aspirations were to become a soldier, and I ended up leaving school, working in some retail stuff, doing they used to call it a YTS, I think, a youth training scheme, and you used to get paid £19.50 a week, and you used to work in kind of different environments and stuff. So my where I ended up was in like retail, and I don't know, about the age of 15, I think was kind of my first introduction to kind of like alcohol and then drugs as well. And I guess what I learned early on was that like substances could do for me what I couldn't do for myself. So like the first time I drank a bottle of Old English, it was like I changed, man, and I relaxed a bit, and I became a joker, and people used to laugh with me, not at me. Do you know what I mean? So kind of in that moment, I thought, "Fucking hell, this is good." This, you know what I mean? People are finding me funny. Do you know what I mean? Like it was all about positive regard that I was getting, and kind of it wasn't long before like started smoking a bit of hash, and again, cannabis for me was able to kind of sedate that part of my mind that's like a Tasmanian devil. It's like fast and furious. Do you know what I mean? And then started moving on to other drugs like psychedelics, like LSD, which I absolutely hated. That was like dissociative drugs really weren't my thing. I used to get too paranoid, and my head was always like never in the right space to do them. And then amphetamines like speed, and when I found speed, I fucking arrived, man. I'm telling you, like a little tenner bag of whiz, put it in a bomb of tab paper, neck that. Half an hour later, oh mate, I was like 100 foot tall, shoulders back, confident. Me patter was fucking amazing. I could talk to the lasses, Harry. Do you know what? Like there was part of me that was really shy and reserved, fucking, and I still am really, believe it or not. Like I'm a complete fucking paradox, me, right? But like I was never confident with talking to girls or out like that. But when I was on amphetamines, I was like, I felt fucking hell. I found the solution here. I'm not thinking about those traumas. I'm not thinking about that pain. I really fucking believe in myself. So drugs weren't the problem. Drugs were my absolute solution. So what made sense to me was keep using amphetamines. Do you know what I mean? But it was getting to a point where I was taking them every day. I started stealing from the employer in order to fucking fund me habit. I started then to realize I didn't have to pay £10 for a gram, that I could kind of get an ounce of it kind of really cheap. And before I knew where I wasn't sleeping much. There was people shouting on us, and there was nobody there. It was kind of like amphetamine
Oh,
induced
fucking hell.
psychosis. And then I kind of had a moment of clarity. I thought, fuck this. I need to go and join the army, to follow my dreams. Do you know what I mean? And kind of get away from the drugs and that. So, that's what I went and done. I went to Army Careers Office wanting to be a wanted to be a pilot in the Army Air Corps with no GCSEs. What was I fucking thinking? Or I wanted to kind of play the bugle in the Royal Marines, because I used to play the bugle at different cenotaphs on Remembrance Sunday. Went to the Army Careers Office and they said, yes, you can join. I was like, yes. They said, you can be a blanket stacker in the fucking Army Ordnance Corps Storm. And I thought, well, fuck it, I'll take it. So I ended up at 19 going to join the army to get away from the drugs and to kind of fulfill me dream career. And but stupidly, I took cannabis with us. I took 9 ounces of cannabis, like a quarter kilo, which sounds loads. I suppose it is loads in some ways, but took that with us in case I was kind of like withdrawn off the amphetamines and stuff. I thought like I would just have a cheeky joint now and again. And I'd been there 3 weeks and I hadn't touched it. I was fucking loving it, man, loving it, army balmy. And then this kid turned up late, 3 weeks late, from Middlesbrough. And I didn't know him, he didn't know me, but we started talking together, and we used to go to the same rave clubs, and it were like, we forgot where we were. We forgot we were in the army, and I said, I've got some hash. He goes, hey, fuck, aye, aye. So like then straight back to my, so get the hash out, bite a bit off for me, bite a bit off for him. We'll go in the toilet, skin the joint up, and I pick my bit of hash up and my joint and take it. He picks his joint up, but he left his hash on the floor. Right, and then fucking off we go. So we're out in the woods having a joint in the army. Do you know what I mean? Oh, it's fucking great, this. And then by the time we walk back, everyone's out looking for it, and somebody's found the hash and had handed it in. The military police are being called from Aldershot, and they come to the camp at Deepcut, Camberley, Surrey, and I'm arrested on the spot. And they fucking search my billet. They find 9 ounces of hash. And I'm put in front of the fucking commanding officer who sent me to Colchester prison for 3 years, and I ended up getting two years in the glass house, and then discharged, and like no hope of staying in the military, and then back home a fucking failure, like 22-year-old, 23-year-old with nothing, feeling like the only thing I ever wanted to be, the only thing I was ever going to be any good at was fucking being a soldier, and I'd fucking blown that. But you know what? Like, drugs were my friend, weren't they? You know, I knew something straight away that was going to change the way that I was feeling, and it was like back on the ways. And then I had some great times. Don't get me wrong. I'm pro drugs, me, Harry. I think that people should have. I think people should have the choice to be able to use substances if they want to do that, and they should be able to do that in a safe way. And a lot of that's about the work that I do is around harm reduction. But like for me, my drug use escalated. The reasons why I was using them became very different. It wasn't about fun anymore. It was about kind of trying to medicate that self-loathing and all of that pain that I had. The different types of drugs I was taking, like started to move on to taking opiates and alcohol and benzos. And it wasn't long before I started having like overdoses and non-intentional ones down to kind of irresponsible drug use. Your circles you move in become different. And I became one of the people in the, you know, people used to say, don't knock around with him, he's the wrong crowd. Well, I became that guy, and it was hard, man. It was hard. I ended up in a lot of locked psychiatric units because I was cutting myself open with razor blades a lot when I was off me nuts, slashing my face open, slashing my wrists. Like,
Is that,
I ended up in.
would it bring up part? Obviously, you said you would use drugs to kind of escape the reality of how you were feeling. It was almost to a point then that it almost threw you back 20 years to the child that was self-harming in two senses, really.
Yeah,
because
totally.
you were doing the drugs and then also self-harming on a really extreme level as well.
Yeah, but I think the thing is, Harry, it's not the drugs, right? Because there was a load of people who were using exactly the same drugs as I was using who didn't end up the way that I did. Do you know what I mean? And I think nationally, we absolutely need to make this, there's a distinction and a difference between like people who use drugs and and others who use drugs in the way that I did. So like 3.2 million people using an illegal drug in the UK last year. I think it's like 11% of the UK population, 1 in every 9 people used an illegal drug. Now, they don't need treatment or support because they're fine. they're using drugs because they get a good buzz out of it, or whatever reasons they're doing it for. There's many reasons why people who use drugs, do you know what I mean? But typically they don't go on to experience the issues that I did. They can go and have an A, they can take a bit of coke, and go back to work on Monday. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying that the drugs that they're taking on dangerous, because drugs are in the hands of organized crime gangs, so they absolutely are. However, the vast majority of those people don't end up where I did. But the United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime, they reckon like around 10 or 15% of people globally who use drugs do so because of adverse childhood experiences and trauma. So for me, one way or another, I was always kind of medicating the traumas I had as a kid, but equally, like, you know, getting sent to prison at that age, I was still a fucking kid, man. I was only like 19, 20. I was just a young man, and I ended up in this really scary place. Again, there'd been a lot of trauma in my life, and a lot of it brought on by me. Do you know what I mean? It's not like I'm absolving myself from the decisions which I made. I made a lot of the fucking decisions which got me in the shit. Do you know what I mean? But in that time there, after I came out of the military, I was on this rapid downward spiral, man. It really irresponsible around me, drug use, a lot of fucking self-loathing. Like a lot of those overdoses which I had were unintentional, and they were down to not really understanding the drugs that I was taking, and how mixing them all together would impact me. However, towards the end, a lot of those overdoses were fucking intentional, man. Like I didn't want to be here. I didn't want to fucking exist, you know, like I became known to mental health services. And as I said, like being detained under the Mental Health Act, I fucking loved that shit, man. In fact, get me there now. In some ways, it was like you put you in a psychiatric unit on a locked ward, feed you sandwiches. It's safe as fucking there for me. Do you know what I mean? The world's on the outside. I'm on the inside. I'm being medicated with antipsychotic medication, which doesn't make you feel great. But I'll tell you what, I felt safe in those places, and I started to get well in those places. And then I would come out, and then I'd be back on that spiral again until like I think the year 2000. And again, I'd had to go up my own wrists again, cut my wrists. I'd been stealing my mum's warfarin. It's a tablet, doesn't do anything but a buzz, it thins your blood. So she used to have a lot of issues around strokes and stuff like that. Her blood used to be really thick, which could cause more problems for her stroke wise. So she used to take warfarin to thin her blood. So my calculated thinking was, if I take enough of these warfarin tablets, it's going to thin my blood. Then if I take a load of dihydrocodeine, which is a really strong opiate-based painkiller, and slash my wrists, then nobody's got to worry about me anymore, and I don't have to worry about me anymore. And that's what I ended up fucking doing. And unfortunately, my dad found me in hospital, stitched up, back on the mental health section. And then back then, it doesn't happen as much now, but back then it was a route straight into residential rehabilitation, into a rehab. I've never been into a rehab before. I always remember my dad driving us there outside this big rehab in Sunderland, and putting his arms around us, and he said, "George, I love you more than you'll ever know, son, but I cannot let you kill my wife." And it was fucking powerful shit, man. And he gave me a kiss and said, "You need to go in there and get well, but if you don't come home." And he'd said that a lot, you know, over the years, but he never followed through on it. But this time I knew he meant it. I knew like he was going to be putting his wife first, which of course, he should have done. He should have done that all along. And I went in there and I stayed there for a year, and I wasn't drinking and I wasn't using, but I was still a fucking mess because alcohol and drugs weren't my problem. The way I used them was, but the reasons I was using them was they were the main issues that I needed to work on. So like I ended up thinking, what the fuck am I going to do, man? Like, I couldn't really come back to the place where I lived because I'd been violently assaulted. I had a bottle stuck in my face and in my back, and it was mad. So I ended up thinking, right, I need to kind of create a new life for myself, and I went and did a basic counselling course, not because I wanted to be a counsellor, but because I was shit scared of like outside. I was shit scared of like doing life straight. It was really scary. Do you know what I mean? Because like, even though all my life had been a bit of a mess, right? Like, or a lot of a mess, like that mess was what I knew, that was familiar to me. And I always remember a counsellor in the rehab saying to us, he said, "You know, George," he said, "your life's shit, but it's comfortable shit. It's the shit that you know." Do you know what I mean? And you've been existing within the shit that you know, even though it's painful, because the fear of stepping outside of that is just too big for you, and you need to step outside of that. So I did a basic counselling course, and 12 weeks long. Everyone passes it, and And I remember at the end of it getting a fucking certificate, and it says this is to certify that George Charlton has completed a basic counselling course. And in those moments, and I get goosebumps even now, man. Like in that moment there, like two things happened. The first thing was it was the first thing I'd ever started in my life and finished, right? Which felt fucking amazing. And then the second thing was the sense of achievement made me feel like snorting cocaine. Right, I got a fucking rush of it. I thought, fucking hell, I feel really high here. Do you know what I mean? Like lots of applause from people, a lot of pride in that group for me. Do you know what I mean? And I thought, fuck me, like this feels amazing. So, like, what can I do next? So I thought, well, there's only one thing to do. So I did a level 2 counselling, a level 3 counselling, postgraduate diploma. I did a degree, stayed on and fucking did a master's, started kind of doing some volunteering and then working in drug and alcohol treatment and support services, and then kind of won some national awards and shit. And then just beyond that, I've just been
Whoa, whoa,
kind of
whoa,
like,
whoa, whoa.
all
Won
right.
some national awards and shit. You don't just brush over that, bro. Come on, tell us about it. Tell us
Oh
about
well,
it.
it was like I won the UK's National Achievement Award. So there was like kind of 1,000 or odd people who are like nominated, and then it goes through this kind of sifting process, if you like. I won the regional award in Newcastle, which was really lovely. And then you go on from like each of the regional areas. Then you go on to the Guildhall in London, and it was a fucking mad. It was mad, man. It was just like environments I wasn't used to being in. Beautiful white linen tablecloths and like table service, and it was really daunting, man, because I was still a mess, you know, Harry. Like I was still really scared, you know. Like I do have a condition which is like a condition. I do really struggle with anxiety a lot. Do you know what I mean? Like I kind of always have, and then being in that environment while everyone else might have been really proud, I wasn't proud. I was scared. It was like fucking hell. It was a big deal, you know. Like facing up to this stuff without substances. Do you know what I mean? And ended up winning that whole thing, the National UK Skills National Training Award, and that was presented by Joanna Lumley. And like I've got this picture of her giving us the well, actually there it is.
I've seen it on your website as well. Yeah, unreal. Unbelievable. That's
So like
just insane, mate. Like honestly, I don't
that
very
pic that
often
pic,
get yeah, I don't very often get made speechless, funnily enough, because talking is something
yeah.
that I absolutely love to do, hence doing the podcast. But this
Yeah.
is something like I've never heard before
Crazy, man. And
in my life.
man, that there for me, that picture represents probably the first time in my life where I felt safe, where I felt like, you know what, maybe I'm going to be okay. Like a big, hairy, horse-grown man there, by the way. Do you know what I mean? But I kind of felt maybe I'm going to be okay here. And you know what? I just used this trajectory. I started making sense of my past addiction, my past traumas, and I made a decision, man. I made a decision early on that that I'm not going to remain anonymous and about my experiences, that I'm going to be open and transparent about them in the hope that that's going to be able to help somebody else. And that quote I said earlier, the only way you keep what you have is by giving it away. That's what all that was grounded in for me. So like the more I can be open and honest and courageous with others about my experiences, hopefully that means that they no longer have to hide and they can feel hopeful. And like from that picture, Harry, man, it's just like I've been cooking on gas, you know, like I've set up a number of different companies, couple of social enterprises which did okay and then they didn't, so kind of let them go. And then the last I don't know, man, the last 10 years I've been working for myself in different capacities. And absolutely loving it. And I mean the main focus of the work that I do now is I travel up and down the UK doing teaching people around a wonder drug called naloxone prenoxide. I do a lot of work up and down the country training cops to be trauma informed and ace away, and kind of getting new officers and existing officers to be really mindful that when you see that homeless lad or lass on the street who everyone thinks is a piece of shit and just a bum, like they've got a fucking story like mine, you know, like what evidence shows, and it's quite compelling evidence actually, is that like for a young person who experiences 4 or more adverse childhood experiences, right, compared to a young person who experiences one or none, the kid that's experienced 4 adverse childhood experiences is 11 times more likely to go into the prison system than I did. Like that, they're 11 times more likely to use illegal drugs, which I did. They're 7 times more likely to have been involved in violent crime, which I was, but I was never the perpetrator. I was always the victim. So we can actually track back that for like for people who use, not people who use drugs, but people who end up the way I was, trauma is a significant has a significant impact on their life. And I think that if we can help people to tune into not looking at the face of that person who's destitute and begging and kind of saying the scum of the earth or a fucking junkie, do you know what I mean? Fuck that narrative. If I hear anyone talking that narrative, they're getting a fucking Tory new arsehole off me. I'm not a hard man, but how dare we think we can fucking talk about junkies and fucking alcoholics and all that? None of us are qualified to fucking speak like that. Do you know what I mean? We need love and sensitivity, man. But when you think about those guys out begging, if you sit in your arse next to them on the pavement and you ask them about their story is no different to mine, no different at all. And I think for me, like that's why everything I do is kind of it's grounded in humanity and love and compassion and empathy and warmth and giving people fucking time, man. And like I feel really strongly about that, you know, Harry. That was afforded to me early on in my when I started to get my shit together. There was a lot of people around me who put their arms around me and said, "You're all right, and you're going to be okay," you know. And I choose to use that as the tool to help the people that I work with, you know. But equally, to get them to recognise lads and lasses impacted by addiction that they've got a qualification that nobody wants, right? They've got a fucking street degree, and if you fucking want their qualification, then you've got to spend 10 years being hurt and raped and fucking beaten. Do you know what I mean? Because that's how we qualified. That was our qualification across the years. So fucking come and get our qualification. You don't fucking want to, do you? Of course you fucking don't. But if you've got that qualification, then let's use it in a really positive way. And I guess that's what I do in terms of the work around peer-to-peer naloxone and other shit, is kind of telling lads and lasses who either use drugs or don't use drugs that they're fucking mega, they're absolutely amazing, and that they can be out in the communities doing really wonderful stuff themselves, which is going to help them to feel good and find a place in the world, but equally to be able to help like people who use drugs in their families to be able to live and stay alive. So I don't know, man. It's like it goes back to that whole law of polarity, doesn't it? All of that fucking bad shit back then brought me to a place where I'm at now, you know what I mean? Kind of like with lots of love, a couple of beautiful daughters, like a nice home, nice car. If it's all about the material things, fair enough. I'm not Mr. Material, mate. I'm more about kind of like the satisfaction that I get through being able to help other people, you know what I mean? So like all of that back then was worth it to kind of bring me to right here, right now. And that's me.
Mate. Unbelievable stuff. I think what's really important as well to speak about, I think, is everybody has their own kind of comeback story in these scenarios, especially when I get them on to talk about them. So it's kind of what the podcast is about, right? Me speaking to people who are doing life-changing stuff, and have come back from some kind of, well, obviously high achievers. Let's go with that.
Yeah,
And when it comes to the sense of somebody having something that they've gone through, in your case, incredibly traumatic, horrible, I can't even think about it because I've got I can't relate to it at all. Like I was incredibly fortunate as a child. Unfortunately, although like you say, your parents were incredible, you came across two people, well, more than two people, your teachers and one other person in the world that essentially were evil, and that could genuinely happen to anybody in life, couldn't it? And especially 40 years ago, because the
well, it did,
services and
Harry. That's the
the
thing.
yeah.
It did. It didn't just happen to me. It happened to lots of people, and I think,
Mm.
especially around the hitting with the straps and that, you know, like for some lads in my school, it was like it was a bit of a badge of honor being hit. Do you know what I mean? Like you had some really, like the hard lads and that, they would fucking willingly take it. But I'll tell you what it is, I bet you fucked them up, man. There's a lot of kids fucked up in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s through this approach which we had in school systems where where we were allowed to fucking beat children. Like, you know, I've got a 15-year-old daughter, Madison, and that, and like I think back to Aunt Charlotte, who's 21. I think, fucking hell, if I'd even heard of anything like that happening in school, like that the police would be there and those teachers would be fucking arrested. But
That's
that's what we did.
yeah, and I think where I was going with my question was in scenarios like that where you speak about somebody that's bounced back. Sometimes, excuse me, sometimes the reaction from people is, "Oh, but it's okay for them." But in your scenario, mate, it really wasn't okay, and you're still in this scenario of high energy. Of course, you like you say, without you still have your quirks. Like there are things around you and your personality that you find difficult, but doesn't everybody? What would you say to that person who said, "Oh, it's all right for you. It's easy. It was easy for you."
Yeah, man. Well, it fucking wasn't. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It just wasn't. Like for me though, it's like I don't know, man. I just want to turn it all on its fucking head, you know. And I think for me, Harry, look, man, it's important to recognize that, like that that everyone's pain is their pain. Do you know what I mean? It's not like emotional pain top trumps here. You know, like you're saying like you don't have a reference point in your life for anything like I've had, but that doesn't detract away from the pain and hurt that you'll have experienced in your life because there's been pain and hurt in your life and in all of our lives. Do you know what I mean? It's not a case of like who's done it the toughest.
yeah,
That
yeah,
shit
yeah.
doesn't matter, right? It's about your convictions to go like what am I going to do here? Do you know what I mean? What can I do to try and make things better within the like with the power that I have to be able to do that? Do you know what I mean? But then there's only so much we can do as like as individuals around that. Sometimes it's systems that are fucking broken. Do you know what I mean? And they need changed. However, like my view on that is like I seen this poster once. It says like, I often wondered why somebody didn't do something about that. Dot 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 dot. Then I realized I am someone, right? And like definitely for me, it's about like I kind of choose to live my life where I'll try and fix the solutions, find the solutions for the things that are fucking broken. Do you know what I mean? To kind of to put myself out there to make things better for people impacted by addiction issues, to try and change and impact on the systems that are there to support people who use drugs. Like I haven't fucking just like sat back and done nothing. Like I'm all in, man. I'm fucking all in. Do you know what I mean? I'm 6 o'clock in the morning, guy. It'll fucking like 9 o'clock at night sometimes because it's the right thing to fucking do. Because this is my game. It's about people's lives. Do you know what I mean, Harry? It's about people's fucking lives. So, those people are going to go, oh, sorry for you. Well, whatever, man. I keep a network of people around me like you. You're in my fucking network, and the other lads and lasses in fucking Inner Circle, and Morty. And I've got other people who aren't in that program who get me, who want to build me up, not fucking pull me down. Do you know what I mean? So, like any of those people, oh, it's all right for you. I'll just give a little moan and move on. It's fucking. I've got no time for that bullshit. Life is time limited. It's really, really fucking fragile. I'm not the young man I once was. I'm 50, but I'm 21 in my head, which is good, it's fine. And age is just a number. But I kind of choose to do my life fucking with positivity and love and kindness and frenetic energy. And you know what? Like getting me fucking way, then I'll just move you fucking out of it and
Yeah.
and focus on helping those people who need love and support.
Protecting that energy, man. I love it. So obviously you're on here now. This will go on YouTube, George. I know you are incredibly passionate about this new super drug that can save lives of people with overdoses, and obviously like incredibly important to you for where you've been at and being in those scenarios where your life got saved as well.
Yeah, man.
Show the viewers naloxone. That's right, isn't it? That's how you
Yeah, man.
pronounce it.
And,
Show us
and
naloxone and how you can use it and how you would go best advising people to where to get it from, how they can get one, and all those kind of things.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And you know what it is, Harry? It's not a new drug, right? So
Ah,
this drug here, we call it naloxone in England. People who listen might know it better as Narcan. Narcan is the brand name in the United States. It's not the drug which was used in Pulp Fiction, so we're not fucking pushing it into people's hearts. which some people think, right? But it's been around. It's been around since the 1960s.
Wow.
So basically, what I do, a big part of my work at the minute is I travel up and down the country, and I work with people who use drugs or people with lived and living experience of addiction, and we get these guys and girls from wherever they are in the community. I work with national drug treatment providers or like NHS bodies or kind of local drug and alcohol commissioners, public health teams. And then basically what we do is I train up groups of individuals who've lived a life like I had, and we train them up to be able to use this. And then they go out into the community with backpacks full of the stuff, and then go and talk to other drug users in the community about like overdose awareness, about drug related deaths. They do a demonstration on how to use it, and then we physically give these kits away, right? Because the reality right now is that across England and Wales, like drug related deaths are higher than they've ever been before. So I think there was 4,907 drug related deaths across England and Wales last year, right? That amounts to about 18 people who died today of a needless and avoidable drug related death. 2/3 of all drug related deaths that happen across the UK involve an opiate like heroin, like methadone, like codeine, like fentanyl, right? So it's a specific class of drugs. 2/3 of those deaths nationally involve those opiates, and this drug's going to reverse that overdose. Do you know what I mean? So typically, if people want access to naloxone, they would either have to be in drug treatment already, because that's where this kit typically sits. There's loads of that which is kept in drug treatment services. So if you're a client of a drug treatment service and you're going in to get your own help and support, realistically what should happen is the organization should be telling you about this, training you how to use it, and giving you a kit, right? However, if you're not in drug treatment for whatever reason, or you're a member of the general public, you never get to know about this, right? And people who are dying today on our streets and pavements. Do you know what I mean? But for these lads and lasses to look like they're just sleeping on the floor. Do you know what I mean? Like, and typically because we can be a fucking closed-minded nation around people who desperately like them, who desperately need help and support and our love and our time. Typically, what we do with those people is we give them a wide berth. We fucking walk right around them. We no longer, we don't kind of stop and go, hang on a minute, is this fucking person in trouble? Do you know what I mean? And that would be kind of one of the signs and symptoms, actually, is somebody who's like, is non-responsive. Do you know what I mean? Sounds like they're snoring, but they're not. They're in respiratory depression. Like they have pinpoint pupils. So typically when you use opiates, your pupils are going to go pinpoint, pale and clammy skin, cyanosis, which is like blue lips, blue fingertips. Do you know what I mean? But like the one thing that I'm always looking for is that a person won't wake with a shout or a shake. They're unresponsive. So like for me, and many others like me, I walk all over the streets of the UK shaking these people. When everyone else is taking a wide berth and going, oh, look at him or her, I'm going up to them and I'm giving them a gentle shake. All right, brother. You all right, mate? You all right? Fuck off, leave us alone. If I get a fuck off and leave us alone, that's mint, because it means they're okay, they're alive. Do you know what I mean, right? But there's been many times when we shake people and say, all right, brother, Harry, can you hear me? Harry, non-responsive. Do you know, that for me is a tell. That's a fucking red flag that I'm going to phone 999. And then literally, if I've got one of these kits, which everyone can carry, then I would use this kit. So it's really simple to use, Harry, right? It's like, I remember like there's the 3 twists is the way to assemble the kit, right? So in ordinary kits, I don't have one to hand, this is wrapped up in cellophane. This is like a demonstrator kit, right?
Okay.
So it's a prescription only medicine as well. So it's not something I've fucking knocked up in my kitchen, right? Like ambulances who come out to emergency call outs, they use this drug. Do you know, it's used globally. It's on the World Health Organization's list of essential medicines. It's renowned. It's a lifesaver, right? So literally, the proper kit it's sealed to keep it clinically like tidy, and then you would tear off the red strip, and then it's 3 twists. So the first twist cracks the packet open, and then inside you have a 2 ml pre-filled syringe, 2 needles, and some instructions, right? So then the second twist is there's a grey cap on the top, Harry. Yeah. So you literally take the grey cap off the top, and then the third twist is literally you're going to get the pin, and you're going to pop that on the end. So this, how I'm talking you through this now, right, is what I train people who use drugs to do when they're in the community. This is how they just work with anybody and everybody, right? So you'll notice in there's 5 doses, right?
Oh yeah.
And then every time we give naloxone, it goes into the top of the arm or it goes into the fatty part of a leg and it goes through clothing. It's literally a case of if a person won't wake with a shout or a shake and they're showing the signs and symptoms, you're going to phone 999. You're going to tell the call handler you've come across somebody who's unresponsive. You think it might be a drugs overdose. You've got naloxone and you're going to use it. The call handlers have crib sheets which will talk you through how to use it, because you can imagine you're going to be really anxious, aren't you? But the
Yeah, yeah,
paramedics
yeah.
are aware of this drug. They'll tell you how to use it. So it's just a case of you're going to take the cap off the syringe, and then you're going to go straight through the clothes and into the top of the arm, intramuscular, and you're going to inject to the first black line. You're going to remove that. You're going to rest it in the cradle of the kit. So it's going to sit back in there and you're going to wait 2 to 3 minutes to see if a person responds. If they don't respond, you're going to pick it back up. You're going to go back in, inject to the next black line, and you're going to keep doing that, Harry, every 2 to 3 minutes until a person comes round, right? When they come round, it's literally just a case of you're going to close that up. You're never going to sheath the needle. And then you're going to give that to the paramedics, and that way the paramedics know what dose you've given somebody. Do you know what I mean? Right? And you're going to stay with the person, even if the paramedics aren't there, you're going to stay with them until such time as the paramedics arrive. Because what people think about this drug, right? People who use drugs who are in an overdose situation, right? They don't know that they were dying. That's the first thing to remember, right? So when we administer this drug to them and it brings them round, it can bring them round quite rapidly. And they can maybe be a bit upset thinking that you've given them naloxone and you've blown their buzz, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But the reality is their recollection was that they'd used heroin and they were having a nice buzz, because at the end of the day, like for anyone who's used heroin, and there's millions of your viewers now thinking, well, fuck, what's he on about? Used heroin? We don't use heroin. Well, you fucking do, because you take cocodamol. Do you know what I mean? You take morphine, do you know, like we take tramadol. We all take fucking. Have you ever took any cocodamol, Harry?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you've used opiates, right? So you've used pharmaceutical grade opiates from the chemist, right? So you take enough cocodamol, it'll fucking kill you because of an opiate overdose. Do you know what I mean? This would bring you round, right? So the thing with the people who've been in that overdose situation is they don't know that they were unresponsive. They don't know that they had stopped breathing. They don't know that they were dying. They just think now that you've used this drug and it's took the heroin out of the system, and it hasn't. What naloxone does is it temporarily removes the opiates from the opiate receptor in the brain, right? When you inject heroin, it kind of makes its way to the opioid receptor in the brain. It sits on top of it and it caps it, and it tells your body to stop breathing. Your body forgets to stop breathing. Naloxone has a stronger affinity for that receptor site. So when we put naloxone in, it makes its way to that receptor site and knocks the heroin off, and then naloxone caps it. So the heroin's still floating around trying to get back on that receptor, but it can't because naloxone's got a stronger affinity. It binds to it, but it's short-lasting naloxone, so it lasts 20 to 30 minutes, in which case after 20 to 30 minutes, the naloxone dissipates and then the heroin can reattach, meaning the person can go back into an overdose. So it's really important that when we've given naloxone, that we use gentle, calm words with the person who's come round. We remind them that there's an ambulance come. It's best for them to see the paramedic, and we stay with them, man. Because if the ambulance isn't there within 20 minutes, there's a chance that person can go back into an overdose, in which case you're going to pick that back up and go back in again. Do you know what I mean? It's an absolute lifesaver, man. And we've done some really, I'm saying I suppose we have, me and the peers who I work with, done some really good work. So we've done like over 60 projects in the last 3 years across like England and Wales, which has been fucking mad. 60 odd, man, like everywhere, every area in Wales, London, fucking the Midlands, just the Northeast, everywhere. It's just like we're trying to do everything we can to flood the place with naloxone. And
Yeah.
I guess for me, what would be dead important would be like, I don't know, maybe some of your guests getting it and carrying it. And it's really easy for people to do that.
Mate, it's really powerful what you're doing. But the next question before I wrap things up, because this has just flown by today, mate, and I knew it would. You do some work in prisons as well. You go in and you you do some speaking, you speak to some of the inmates. What is the message there? And I know you are very well, you come to inmates with love and empathy and respect as well, something that isn't commonly done. You kind of, when you get put behind bars, um it's kind of like a general public sense of feeling, ah, fuck 'em kind of thing. But I know through somebody I know that in the prison service, it isn't just all about that. There is a chance that these people can come back from where they are. Obviously it's tough because when they're put in there, there's only so much that the workers inside the jail can do to try and help these people, and they've got to kind of want the help themselves.
Yeah,
What message do you take in to speak to people like who maybe are reoffenders? Or yeah, I'd love to know what you speak about.
yeah, man. Just for me, it's about like if a knobhead me, like if a knobhead like me can kind of achieve the things that I've achieved, that's attainable for absolutely everyone. Do you know what I mean? But I think for me, it's about helping these guys to recognize that there is life beyond liberation. You know, when you're getting out of the gate, like that idea that if you've always done what you always do, you'll always get what you always got. Like a definition of insanity is to repeat the same behavior and expect different results. So there has to be a way of kind of breaking the revolving door, if you like. Do you know what I mean? And I think for a lot of the lads and lasses who I speak to in prisons, don't believe that of they don't believe that they're worthy of anything, that it's attainable for them. So definitely for me, it's about kind of making sure that they know that it absolutely is, and that there's projects like mine, and it's not like I'm the only person doing fucking work like this. You know, Harry, like there's lots of great work going on across the UK, which prisoners can get plugged into. Do you know what I mean? When they come out. So for me, it's about, I don't know, it's about going in and just inspiring some hope. Went in with Morty to HMP Peterborough recently. I remember all the lads coming in. We were in the chapel, me and Paul, and all these lads come in, got their jail faces on, fucking, do you know what I mean? Like all talking the jail patter, all sat down and that because they didn't know what they were coming into. And then Paul does his thing, I do my thing, and then all of a sudden they're hearing this guy standing in front of them talking about being raped as a kid, right? And you know what happens, right? The mask drops, right? The jail face drops, and then all of a sudden you get to you get to see the real people that they are, which isn't fucking hardened criminal masterminds. Do you know what I mean? That's just a lot of lads and lasses who've done it really, really tough in their life. Do you know what I mean? And that doesn't kind of excuse some of the behaviors that got them there in the first place. Do you know what I mean? But it was really beautiful that day, man. I tell you, me and Paul, there must have been 80 people in that room, and there was a queue of them coming up to us to want to put their fucking arms around us. Do you know what I mean? And like again, goosebumps, Harry, man. Like fucking, it's
Impact.
really special. You know, like for me, it's not always about like we think that we need all these amazing systems and complex fucking processes to help people, and I don't think that we do. You know, like something that always sticks with me from my counseling training was that there was an eminent psychologist called Carl Rogers. He was the founder of the person-centered counseling, and he said that the relationship is the therapy. That was his words, right? The relationship is the therapy when two people come together with unconditional positive regard, congruence, and can speak truths and try to understand each other. That's all the help that a person needs initially. And I kind of think that's how it is for me. Like, I'm not going to judge people by their fucking past mistakes. How dare I? I can't. Look at my fucking life. Do you know what I mean? Like, who the fuck am I to judge people? But what I can do is meet people where they're at, give them the tools and to be able to stay alive, give them advice and information, advice and guidance around using drugs in a safe way, and let them know that there's some fucking amazing, beautiful opportunities out there to just fucking to have a life that's absolutely worth living. Do you know what I mean? I just fucking I love it, me man. You know, I've done a lot of quotes, haven't I? I'm a quote guy, me. I'm a quote guy, and I think probably one that I should leave you with is like, if you find a job that you love, you'll never work a day in your life, and that's how I feel, man. I don't work, me, Harry. I people give me money to do something which is a fucking honor to do, which is like to be involved in people's lives. We shouldn't let that pass us by, man. We cannot let that pass us by. It's a fucking privilege, man. And all of these people are somebody's son, somebody's daughter, somebody's husband, somebody's wife, somebody in it. These people are somebody like, if you're not into it, if you're not wanting to help people, like, fair play, man. Just fucking move on and leave it to guys like us and you. Like, you do fucking really outstanding work as well, Harry, you know, with a different demographic of people completely. Do you know what I mean? But I know that fucking love and humanity and empowerment and high energy and it is wrapped up in everything that you do. And you're the fucking power of example, you know, like, what, seeing some of your stuff, bro, it's fucking blown my mind, and respect you, man, because like in your game, you're doing exactly what I do, just different groups of people in it. So
Mate,
yeah, man. So
I really appreciate that. Yeah, no, it's really nice to hear that from somebody that I completely, utterly admire and respect. George, I always end up the podcast with the same two questions. The
yeah,
first question I've got for you is, what is next for George Charlton and GC Consultancy Services? I guess, I'm just gonna guess it's gonna be keep bringing the fucking love or something along those
yeah,
lines.
man. Keep bringing the love. And interestingly, you should say that, which just developed a new social enterprise, which is called We Are Love. And the love is spelled LUV, and it stands for Liberating User Voices. So what we've done is we've took all of those peer groups that we've got, we've pulled them into the UK's first national network of people who use drugs. We've legitimized a community interest company. There's a couple of the guys who are directors on the company. And then this year and going forward, we're going to be making sure that people who use drugs, their voices are heard and represented in terms of the way in which we develop services. So typically, at the minute, they're not involved in the commissioning of drug services. We kind of guess, I think. We can sometimes guess at what people who use drugs need rather than asking. So this vehicle we've just created, We Are Love, is going to be peer researchers, peer journalists, peer filmmakers who go out in the community and really energize and uplift the voice of people who use drugs so we can get services which are deserved for demand. And then other than that, man, I'm keeping working on I've been doing a bit of fitness, Harry. Do you know
Yes,
what I mean?
boy.
So like, I've been like, I did run every day January this year. One of my quarterly goals for quarter 1 was to run 100 kilometers, but I've done 200 mile, which is good. Do you know what I
Wow.
mean? I ran every day in January. I got up not Sunday gone, the Sunday before. I thought, what am I going to do today? Fuck it, I'll just run a half marathon. So I've just fucking got out and done it. I've joined a running club. I've been doing park run. I've got a best 5K PB in the last month. I've got a best 10K PB in the last month. And I've got a best half marathon fucking time in the last month. I've been off the booze for like, I don't know, 82 days or something like that. And I guess I'm just like, I'm just working on trying to be a better me, um, be present for the people that I work with, and be in a place to be able to just to love me kids, to love my daughters. Do you know what I mean? And have like fun experiences with them. We're off to Egypt on Friday, me, Charlotte, and
Oh, amazing.
so aye, man, just trying to be a better me, man. Just trying to be a better me and influencing. That's it.
Absolutely amazing. I love it. I love it. And final question on today's episode with George Charlton is, what is the greatest bit of advice you've ever been given?
Oh my God. Greatest bit of advice I've ever been given. There was a guy many years ago when I was still in the rehab. There was a guy he would define himself as being in recovery from alcohol use. He used to work on the shipyards down in South Shields, and I used to plead with him, please, Sean, get us a job, right? And he said, no, no. He said, you don't have to get your hands dirty, son. Like, you've got a good mind there, you. But the one thing that sticks with us that he said was, when I was desperate and I asked him for help, right? What he said was, I will help you, but it's conditional. I said, I'll do anything. I really connected with this guy. Do you know what I mean? He was like really outspoken in Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous. He was a legend in my eyes, but everyone else found him a bit of an antagonist. And I pleaded with him to help. And he said he would help, but it was conditional. And I said, I'll do anything. And he said, right. So he said, here's the crack. He says, I'll help you for a couple of years on the condition that when you get well, because you will, that you go and do for one other person what I've done for you, which is to show them love and humanity. And I promised him that then, but I didn't just do it with one person. I choose to do it with every single person that I work with as a legacy for him. So that advice was like, the only way I can ever keep what I've got is by giving that away. And that's that. Rest in peace, Sean. He was a nice man. He was a really lovely man, and he was he was instrumental in the early days of my life, you know. So yeah, man, I feel fucking blessed to people like him and many others who've been involved in my journey.
Incredible, man. Where can people come and find you if they want to come find out more about you and what you do?
Yes, so I'm my email is info@georgecharlton.com. George Charlton Training and Consultancy Services on Facebook. I think I'm at GBMC73 on Twitter. I'm not even sure about Insta. I'm not fucking down with the kids. It fucking blows me mind. TikTok, I'm on there, but I'm not fucking doing much on it because I don't know how to work it. But Google George Charlton, you'll find me there, and all my platforms are there. And you know what? What I would say, Harry, is just this very quickly. This drug is free, and anybody can carry it. So wherever you are in the country, where are you, Harry, for instance? Where are you in the world?
Yeovil, Somerset.
You're
Yeovil,
Somerset, right?
yeah.
So what I know for a fact is Somerset Drug and Alcohol Services, right? It's Turning Point is the service down there because I know because my mate Deb Hussey was involved there, right?
All right.
If you get in touch with a local drug treatment service, Google drug treatment in the area where you live, phone them up and say there's been this potty mouth Geordie motherfucker who I've just watched on a podcast who's been talking about naloxone. Can I come down and get trained to have it? They'll say yes, come down. It takes 5 minutes to get trained, carry a kit. And I guess the biggest compliment you could pay me would be to do that. Harry, you've got no excuse because I've told you where you need to fucking go. I'll send you the link, right?
Yeah, do
Go
it.
and get trained and save lives with naloxone, man.
Insane.
That's it.
What an episode this has been today. Unbelievable energy, incredibly powerful story, which I knew it would be today with George. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please go over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and drop a 5-star review. And if you are watching us on YouTube, please drop a like and subscribe below. Let us know what you think. Let us know you're going to go and get this naloxone drug. It can save a life. George, thank you so much for having the episode with me today. And I'll catch you, the listeners and the viewers, every Friday with a new one. Take care.